Saving Mr. Banks was released in 2013. It stars Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson, and is about the true story of how P.L. Travers did not want to give the rights of Mary Poppins to Walt Disney. Now, believe it or not, Saving Mr. Banks is probably the only movie I will be reviewing this week that I've actually already seen before, which will make the review a whole lot easier because 1, I've seen it quite a few times now, and 2, I really like this movie. There's so many things working in this movie's favour that it's really hard not to like this movie. You have some great performances, mainly led by Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson, who really pretty much carry the entire movie. Tom Hanks as Walt Disney is fantastic. I don't really know what Walt Disney was like as a person because there's not really that much footage of him to go by, but I presume he did a good job in that regard. But it's Tom Hanks. He can very rarely do any wrong, so yeah, he's really good in this movie. And Emma Thompson is again also really good in this film. Again, she rarely puts a foot wrong when it comes to acting in films. And I like how her character adapts over the course of the movie. She starts off as this very tight and upper class woman who really is protective of the thing she's created, that being Mary Poppins. And for a majority of the movie, she's very begrudging in wanting to hand the rights over to Walt Disney. She wants to hold it on to herself, and at times she can seem a bit like a bitch in that regard, but thanks to some very well timed flashbacks and some really heartfelt conversations that she has with her cab driver, played by Paul Giamatti, you really do understand why she doesn't want to let go of this thing that she has, because it is much more personal to her than we initially perceive it to be, which kind of gives the movie that emotional punch. And again, that is mostly emphasised through these flashbacks that feature Colin, Farrell and a few other actors as well. Even though the flashbacks, in my opinion, do get a little less interesting as the film goes on, I completely understand why they are there. And I think the fact that they go back and forth about 50% of the movie is a good idea, and it really does, hammer in that message of why she doesn't want to give the rights over. But I suppose I might just get this out of the way now, my one major gripe is that whenever it does cut back to the flashbacks, I do just want it to cut back to how they are making Mary Poppins. It's still interesting, but as the film goes on, I would rather be watching the stuff with P.L. Travers and the guys making the songs rather than the flashbacks, even though I completely understand that you can't have one without the other. The supporting cast are really good as well here. You have, like I said, Paul Giamatti, who really brings out this human side to P.L. Travers in these really heartfelt one-to-one conversations that they have together. You also have people like Jason Schwartzman and a few other actors who play the people who are trying to bring Mary Poppins as we know it to the big screen. And it's quite funny watching their interactions with P.L. Travers, because they have all these brilliant ideas and ideas that would really work for a film, but then you just have P.L. Travers just immediately shooting them down like within seconds, and it does lead to some of the funniest moments in the movie. But that being said, it also leads to probably one of the sweetest moments in the film as well, involving the song Let's Go Fly a Kite, and as most of you should know, is in the original Mary Poppins movie. And when that song is used in the film, it's just a really sweet moment, because it's one of the very rare times in the movie where the people trying to come up with the ideas finally manage to connect with P.L. Travers in some sense. Yeah, it's just one of the nicest moments in the film. Also, just from a premise perspective, it's really interesting seeing how the things we take for granted in the original Mary Poppins film came to be. Again, whether it be through the flashbacks of how they actually happened, or whether it be how they went about trying to think of those ideas in the first place in the writing room. It's really nice seeing that whole aspect of the movie, and I like it when movies do that, you know, show how a famous movie is being made in a very, I suppose, creative way, and I really like how they handle it in this movie. My only other nitpick is that there are a couple of times where it does feel slightly over-dramatic. It doesn't dabble in that bit too much, so it's not that big of a distraction, but there are one or two times where it does try to go for the over-dramatics ever so slightly. Luckily, like I said, it's not too obvious to take away from the experience, but they are noticeable. In the end, I'm going to give Saving Mr. Banks a 9 out of 10. It's just a really lovely movie that knows what it is and sticks to it. I've watched it quite a few times now, and I will happily watch it again in years to come. And yeah, if you haven't seen this movie and you're a fan of the old school Disney classics such as Mary Poppins or Bedknobs and Broomsticks, then I think you will find something to appreciate with this film. So guys, that was my review of Saving Mr. Banks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.